going because I can just see you.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, I'm old. I gotta remember technology. Hi everyone, my name is Erica Lattori. I am currently a third-year medical student at the Idaho College of Osteopathic Medicine. So I am a DO. And for those of you later, if you want to know, we can talk about the difference between MD and DO. I'll give you some background information on my education first, and then I think after that, I will kind of go right into a Q&A. That way I can see what you guys want to talk about. So I was born and raised in North Idaho. So the Pacific Northwest, for those of you who are elsewhere. Very, very small town at the time, but now it's grown a lot bigger. So my high school was probably, I had a class about 350. So a pretty big class for some people. And so we had a lot of resources, a lot of classes that we were able to take. I know some of you kind of had questions about what classes to take in high school, and we can talk about that as well later. But I participated in a lot of clubs and did a lot of things. So we'll talk in more in detail. After high school, I attended Montana State University, which was in Bozeman. I basically went there because of their research. It's a really big research institute. They get a lot of funds and a lot of money to do that. And I knew I wanted to go to medical school. So research is a part of that in undergrad. So I did a bachelor's there. I actually majored in exercise science and biomechanics instead of just doing neuroscience or like biology or one of those. And then I actually stayed and got a master's degree. It was a compressed program. We did 2 years of a master's degree in one, mostly just because I was ready to move on and apply to medical school. So it was a really hard program, but so I do have a master's in health sciences. And then after that, I actually took a gap year to go work in Southern California. I taught private school as a math and science teacher. And then while I applied to medical school, I also was partially applying to the Navy. And so I am a, what they call Naval HPSP Scholarship recipient. And that is just a fancy way of saying that the Navy pays for my med school. I am in military. I do a lot of, you know, my path is very different because of that, and will be in the future. So if you guys have questions about that, we can talk about that too. But that is pretty much my educational background in a short snippet. Other than that, I am, you know, I love to do outdoor stuff, and I'm a lake. I grew up on a lake, so I like to wakeboard and tube and swim and do anything in the water, paddleboard, hiking, anything outdoors. So.
All right, that sounds good. So I think you're gonna go over kind of the Google Doc stuff of what you guys kind of said before, and then we can open up the chat. I disabled it right now temporarily, but then we can open up the chat for kind of further questions.
Okay. So I had a couple questions from you guys, and I'll go over those first because those were submitted. So, okay, so what was the journey like from high school to medicine in the Navy, and as in what did you do in high school to get there? So let me see if I can share the screen here actually, because I need to look at both of these. Okay, we'll just do it this way. So one of the things that I think is really important to clarify just with that question is that I didn't join the Navy until after I got into medical school. So I did not do any military things in undergrad and in high school. In fact, you can't until you're 18. So I didn't join, I didn't enlist, I didn't do any of that. I went and got a 4-year degree first, and then got an acceptance letter into medical school, and then applied to the military. That's one of the things that you have to do to be on this specific scholarship, the HPSP Scholarship, which stands for Health Professions Scholarship Program. You have to have a letter of acceptance from a medical school. That is one of the stipulations. They also do law school, law school, nursing school, PA school, and dental school with that scholarship too. So it's not just med school. But to get off the Navy thing, so in high school, I think I realized that, or you have to realize that everything you do in high school, in undergrad, no matter how small, whether it's a club, whether it's taking an extra course, whether it's being involved in sports, or just like even some of your hobbies, whether like, you know, I had a friend who got into med school and he had the best interview because he liked archery and the interviewer also liked archery. So sometimes your hobbies can help you get in. It's not just scholastic things. But everything you do at every step in your education, whether you're 16 years old or 22, like they build on each other. So just understand that good behavior and doing things for your future always translates into the next step. So for me, I wrote down a couple things. So one, I know you guys have probably heard this a million times, you gotta get good grades. And that doesn't mean you have to have a 4.0. If you do, awesome. But it means you have to get above probably at least a B average. If you have a couple grades that aren't that awesome, that's totally fine. In undergrad, I got a C in a business class one time, and I missed an assignment. It was totally on me. But as long as you are having what they call good trends, you should be fine. Specifically in undergrad for that, not as much in high school, because high school has a lot to do with just getting into college in general. So in order to go to medical school, you do have to have a 4-year degree. So that is one of the things you need to work on as a high schooler, is that idea that, hey, I want to go to college. I need to think about where I want to go, what kind of programs I want to do, how am I going to pay for it. So scholarships are your best friend for that, whether it's academic or athletic, or I have a friend who got a full ride because she played in the band. So you can get money to go to college for pretty much anything. Oh. The other thing that I would say besides doing good in the schoolwork is you need to do something else besides school. I don't care if that's band. I don't care if that's, you know, DECA, or you play football, or you play, you know, softball or soccer. I don't care what that is. It could be volunteering in town too. I personally, when I was in high school, I played volleyball and track. I was part of student government, and I also volunteered in our, there was a weird name. It was like our health promotion class. We worked with nurses and public health people, and they just put out booths once in a while in the cafeteria, and like, don't get STDs and don't get pregnant and those sorts of things. So that was fun and helps with your like your CV, which is your curriculum vitae, which basically is like your resume of all the cool stuff you've done. The other thing you need to know is your attitude and who you are as a person really matter, whether that's with getting into college and being in an interview, or you know, the medical school interviews especially too. Like, you just need to be kind, be open-minded about other people, you know, whether that's the person interviewing you, your teachers, your friends, even acquaintances, and specifically even people you don't like. That goes a long way, and people will see that and see that in your character, and sometimes that's enough to get you into a school. I remember getting a specific email from the dean of my medical school when I got accepted. He actually called me to tell me I had gotten accepted, and he remembered my name, and he was very good about that. But he said he specifically remembered me because I was very kind to the cleaning lady. Because as we left, I helped her pick something up. It was just like she dropped something, and he remembers that specifically. And it was that one thing that made me stand out, besides my resume and besides my school. So just be a nice person, and you never know who's going to notice. The other thing I would say is find a mentor. So that's number one. Find yourself a mentor. If you want to be a surgeon, find a surgeon who's going to allow you to shadow them, or pick their mind, or go to coffee or something, or, you know, whatever you want to do. And the second part of that is be a mentor. So one of the things that I love to do is stuff like this. Like I love to share my knowledge because in order for me to get into schools and be successful in what I'm doing, I listen to other people too. Like I attend these all the time when there's a physician. You know, I'm a part of the Women in Medicine Club, and we talk about issues with, you know, being a female and the special things we have to deal with. And I'm in an organization for minorities. And so we sit down and we talk about the things in healthcare that, you know, we have to deal with that some of our counterparts don't. So being a mentor and finding a mentor not only helps you gain the knowledge to be successful, but it also helps you network. It helps you meet people. It helps you just be a more rounded out person. And it feels good. You know, it feels good to have people you can go to and people who can come to you for answers. So, the third thing I did specifically in high school was I shadowed. So I shadowed an orthopedic surgeon. I shadowed a family doc. I shadowed in college. I continued to do that. And I shadowed in medical school in the last 2 years. So I continually was immersing myself in these careers that I thought I wanted to do so I could get a better look at, you know, I really do want to do this, or maybe I don't. Because saying, you know, oh, I want to be a surgeon, I want to be a family doc, that's great. That's awesome. But if you don't know what they do on a daily basis, you really don't understand what it, like your own motivations, right? You can research what med school's like, and you can research, you know, how to get into colleges and these different careers, but the most helpful thing is to see it in person because it might be different than what people say. So, you know, call an office. I remember as a high schooler, I dressed up, not super formal, but I put on a nice shirt and slacks and I printed off my resume, which was very short. And I went to the office and I talked to the front desk and said, hey, I'm a high schooler and I am interested in this career. Is there anyone I can shadow here? Totally just random, because I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a family doctor in my family. And luckily, you know, I got a couple no's, but there was a couple docs that were super excited about it. So if you don't have an opportunity to do that, you don't know a doctor, you don't have that connection, go make it. Like no one is stopping you except yourself. Okay. So that was only one question and I have 4. So if you want to just do chat, that's fine too.
Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna open it then.
Yeah. I just want to make sure this is relevant to everyone.
Yep. Okay, you guys can start putting in your questions.
So how did you get your shadowing opportunity? So I kind of already answered that one. They call it cold calling. So you can go to an office, or my mom also was a nurse, not in a hospital, but she had friends who knew doctors, and sometimes they would go and she'd say, hey, call this person and see if they'll let you shadow, you know?
Yeah.
You just gotta ask.
Yeah, so another question about shadowing, it's kind of like, how do we do it with COVID? And some people are saying that specifically in Canada, it's really rare. So what are other options, basically?
Well, you can do stuff like this. Other options is, because what happens on shadowing is, especially if you're an undergrad, you're not in medical school, they're not going to really let you do much just because of legality issues. If you can't go in person, the equivalent of that is just meeting with them. So instead of saying, hey, you know, I would still ask. Some clinics might just be like, you know, wear a mask, it's fine, sign some papers, you're good. But if you can't, I would say, hey, I really want to shadow. I know that your office allows me to or whatever, but with COVID, you can't. Like, would you be available to meet on like a 1-hour WebEx or a 30-minute WebEx, and I could pick your brain and then write down questions. You know, if you're lucky enough, go out to coffee. I don't, you know, some states are, you know, more lenient to that right now than others. But yeah, I mean, that is hard though, if where you're at just won't allow you at all to come in. You might just have to, I would say research it at that point. Yeah, that's kind of hard.
Garrett? The next one is, when you shadowed, did you bring a notebook to write things down?
So I did and I didn't. So I always bring something to write. Whether that's because I want to like take notes, or I'm gonna, like, even now when I'm in medical school, I'm in my rotations. I'm in psych right now at a state hospital, so I'm seeing quite a bit. Sometimes it's a little boring, but it's, psych can be off and on. I write down things that I hear, that like a medication name, right? And I'm like, oh, I should probably know what that is. So I'll write it down for later, and I'll go Google it and be like, oh, I know what that is, or I can go look it up. You should always have something. And then what else do we have?
So another one is kind of for you to go over the HPSP thing. Like how do you choose your specialty with it, and how do you have to, how will it be like, how will life be at like after med school with the scholarship, and what you kind of owe to the Navy?
Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about that. I can get real in depth about this. And a side note, the whole reason, if you want to learn more specifically about Navy, or it could be Army, this scholarship is for every branch. So Army, Air Force, Navy, National Guard may do it. Yeah, but I talk about this a lot on my Instagram. That's the whole point I even started that. So yeah, I talk about med school, but that one's mostly if you want to learn about that. So if I talk and you still have questions, you can go visit that later, because I take questions all day on that. But so the HPSV scholarship is a 4, 3, and 2-year possible scholarship. Obviously, if you go to med school, which is 4 years, you're going to want the 4-year because it pays for all 4 years. In addition to paying for your tuition and anything your school like has in your tuition, they'll pay for your health care, like your insurance. And they'll give you a stipend to live on based on where you live. So like I live in Idaho, I would get a little less money than someone who lives probably in New York. Just, that's normal. To apply for the scholarship, it is quite competitive. It's not impossible by any means. And it varies by year how many scholarships they give out. So like one year, if they get a ton of applicants and they don't have a ton of scholarships, the next year there won't be as many, but it could be the exact opposite. So the year I applied, they had extra scholarships. So those scholarships and all that money rolled over to the next year. So, take everything you hear about this with a grain of salt. So if someone says, oh, they didn't have enough scholarships, they won't have enough scholarships for you if you apply, that's not necessarily true. So they pay for 4 years, and when I'm done, I owe them 4 years of active duty service as a physician. However, that looks very different depending on what branch you're in, how competitive you are, and what specialty you want to do.
Okay.
Just to make this relevant, just think about the things that a military would want in a doctor, right? So they want ER, ortho surge, gen surge, family medicine, ER, ortho, general, family med. Those are the main ones. Those are what we call wartime specialties. Those are the ones they really need. But you can do any specialty you want. So if you want to be a pediatrics or OB-GYN or ophthalmology or dermatology, like they have those doctors. It's just that they might have more residency spots for other ones. So that's way farther down in your career. However, like right now in medical school, I'm about to be a 4th year in like 6 or 7 months. So I'm in my 3rd year. We kind of just started, but it's going to fly by. I am going to do a different match program than most of my civilian, so the normal classmates. So my match is in December. Theirs is in March. I'm do a match for the Navy residency programs. In addition to that, though, I could try to. There's a lot of acronyms and whatnot in the military. It's called NADS. I know it's kind of a weird thing, but it basically means I could try to defer and do a civilian residency and not do my residency through the Navy and then go through there and then come back to the Navy. Or I could pause after med school. That's another option. pause, and then do what's called the GMO. And this is specific to the Navy. So the Army and Air Force don't do this. And that just means General Medical Officer. So after med school, yay, I'm a DO, I'm a doctor, I have the letters behind my name. Okay, I'm gonna pause my life and I'm gonna go active duty right away and pay back my time. And then once I'm done, I'll do my residency. Pros and cons: residency is delayed. Pro is that if I wanted to get into a super competitive specialty like orthopedic surgery or something, now I'm going to be farther up on the list and get preference for whatever residency I want because I did my time. I paid my dues. So that's kind of how the military works. There's a lot more detail. Even I'm still trying to figure out some of the more nitty gritty. So to get the scholarship, you have to apply. And it's the application process is a little hard. It's mentally taxing. Sometimes it takes a really long time. They do a really big background check on you. They want to know everything about you. I mean, it's the military. So I had to give them medical records from when I was 10 years old. I had to find them, first of all. That took the longest time. Call up doctors from years and years. I had to fill out a bunch of paperwork, basically on my mental health and my physical health. I had to go to an 8-hour physical where they test everything. And then I also there's various steps to go through, but they checked my grades. You know, I had to get a certain MCAT score. And the higher the MCAT score, the easier it was actually to get through. So if you get a really high MCAT score, they bypass a lot of steps. And so, yeah, the first step though to apply is number one, you have to have an acceptance letter from a medical school. So you can try to start getting a hold of recruiters before that. And in fact, I would recommend it because it takes a really long time to find the right recruiter. But you technically can't start applying and submitting paperwork until you have a medical school to go to. So, and then every year you're on the scholarship, you have to do 45 days of active duty service. But that looks different every year. So my first year, I went to training for 5 weeks in Newport, Rhode Island, which is a beautiful town. It's a yacht town. And it was the worst / the best experience of my life. I met the best friends. We still Skype. They're all dentists though, so I don't know how that happened. And it was amazing. And then this last time I did my active duty service doing what's called school orders, meaning the military basically paid me extra money to study for my boards. So they were like, you're a student, take your boards, do well. That's what they wanted. So,
okay.
Yeah. And then the next 2 years, so this year and the next year, I will use those 45 days of active duty service to rotate at a hospital.
Okay. That's pretty interesting.
Yep.
So the next question is, what's the difference between MD and DO, and why aren't DO programs better known?
Better known?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the first time actually I've heard that. I hear it the other way around.
Oh, really? No, I've heard
yeah.
I've heard it like DO programs are lesser than MD. That's what I've heard. So.
Oh, lesser or better?
Yeah. No. Lesser. Like, it's just a common stereotype, I guess, that people have.
Yeah, we get that a lot. So the reason for the stereotype is because MDs. So once you're in medical school, you have to realize that DOs and MDs are taught exactly the same thing. We have the same 4 years of same 2 years of didactics. You're going to be doing book work. You're going to be learning systems, biochem, pharmacology, all of it. So you get all that. Based on your school, the next 2 years differ. And that's not based on MD or DO. That's just your school and how they have it set up. Are you going to start clinicals, in second year a little bit, preclinical exposure? Are you going to do it later? Are you going to do a research year? That's based on school. The reason that DOs, and the reason people think it's lesser, is because they accept students and applicants traditionally with lower MCAT scores and lower GPAs. My school doesn't. We put our stats out and they're the same. which I don't know why my school's a little different, probably because we're brand new. I was the inaugural class there. And the reason I chose to go to a DO school personally actually had nothing to do with it being DO or MD. I chose my medical school based on location. I'm from Idaho. I was gone out of Idaho for 6-7 years. I have family and a niece, and I'm a godmother, and I wanted to be in their life. And so for me, a lot of it was based on my family. You know, and that's totally fine if that is like, some people want to base it on, you know, they want to go to the Ivy Leagues and they want the name and they want this and they want the research. And that's totally fine. I didn't care. I know I want to work in like a more rural, small town. I want to be in Idaho. I don't want to be in a big city. I don't want to do a PhD, like totally fine. The very obvious difference between MD and DO programs in education is that DOs learn osteopathic manipulative techniques. So we learn the hands-on stuff. MDs have none of that in their curriculum. That is not a thing. The founder of osteopathic medicine, A.T. Still, was an MD who became a DO. So he was an MD and DO back in the day. And he put a lot of preference on like the biomechanical model. So he thought that, you know, your muscles, your nerves, your bones, your stress levels, so who you are, your cultural beliefs and like what you eat during the day, and all these things are the bigger picture of health. And so I think, and I can't say for sure because I don't go to an MD school, but I talk to my friends who are at you know, University of Washington through the WWAMI program up here, or they go to UC San Diego. I have most of my friends are West Coast. And sometimes they teach us a little different in how we communicate with patients. So we have standardized patients at my school, and I think most schools do, where they're patient actors and they come in like, and you go in like you're the doctor into a clinic and you see the patient, you interview them, you see what's wrong, whatever. But the way we approach it is more like body, mind, and spirit. So I'm not just going to ask you what's wrong and fix that. I'm going to ask, you know, what's going on at home. The way I interview is going to try to get a whole picture. And that's not to say that MDs don't. It's just what I've learned through my education. And you're still going to find stigma out there, though. There are going to be programs that if you say you're a DO, they're going to think you're lesser. And that's not true. We're all human beings and we all get to decide our education and our grades and what we want to do. I wanted to go into sports med. So OMT was actually super like something I wanted to learn. Musculoskeletal system. I was an exercise science major. I did biomechanics. Like I love that stuff. And then what was the other big thing I wanted to touch on that? Oh, DO schools traditionally also admit non-traditional students. So MD programs are very much like you are right out of undergrad, and you're 21, 22, and you're going straight through. They don't admit as many 35-year-olds who used to be a chiropractor who now want to go to med school, or nurses or PAs, or someone who's a lawyer and now wants to be a doctor. Like kind of random. In my class, we have a prior chiropractor, prior 2 PAs, multiple nurses. We had someone who used to own their own business and now they decided, they also want to be a doctor. Like we have a lot of non-traditional students. And so one of the reasons also to correlate that back to why we have lower GPAs and lower MCAT scores in most DO schools is because they don't put as much emphasis on that. They still have cutoffs. You still have to get a certain cutoff. But if you can show that you are like a whole person and you are intelligent enough to handle the rigor that medical school will bring, you can change that around. And I would say that that is also applicable to MD schools. I will reveal that there are some medical schools, and I don't know, maybe some DOs, I know for sure some MDs do that, where your application will be put through a computer filter that literally says, if they don't have this GPA, I'm not even going to look at it. Which to me, I get it. You know, some people want that, they want that 3.8 in undergrad. I personally know the smartest people who got a 3.5 and now they started a business and they're fine. Like, I think that's a lot of the difference that you will learn as you grow up is getting good grades is awesome, but if you're not a human being who can talk to people and do the job, it will show. So again, the best thing you can do is evaluate your goals. Do you want to go to like you wanted a BSMD program that goes straight through? Awesome. That is actually, those programs are amazing because you can literally, you know, your life's planned and you don't have to worry about it. You just got to do well. Or do you want to, you know, do you want to go to an East Coast school? Do you want to be in a big area or do you want to be in a rural town? Because those are different. And you just have to realize, you know, if you sign up for certain programs, like, not the BSMD, but the like the MD, PhD programs, or the ones that are really long, I would sit down and, you know, I would count out how old are you going to be when this is done, you know, because one of the biggest struggles that they don't talk about with medical school, no matter what medical school you go to, is that when you're in your mid-20s and your friends are starting their jobs and buying homes and getting married, you might be, but probably not. And so you need to evaluate what your true goals are. If you're just going to a school, you're like, oh, I want to go to Stanford because it's Stanford, you're not doing it. You're going to be so unhappy. You know, if you want to go to Stanford because you like that area and they have a program that does early clinical experience and the population of people there is like diabetics and you're interested in GI, like, awesome. Do not be that student who says, I want to be a doctor because it's prestigious and they make a ton of money. Yeah, you're right. You do make a ton of money, but you also have, for the most part, 400 grand in debt and you need to evaluate everything. So that's a lot, especially since some of you are in high school. I feel like a lot of you in undergrad can sit down and think about that, but don't let student doctor network get you down because that's not always true.
All right, that sounds good. So the next one is kind of talking about like internships and research, like if you did any and how you kind of went about doing it. So.
Okay. I did do research. I did not do research in high school. I did research in undergrad. My college, like I said, I went to MSU because I knew they had a lot of research. In fact, they're like, for that region of the United States, they have the most grants and most of the professors there go to teach there because they do research. So hold on. So yeah, I thought about that a little. I also thought about the fact that I wanted to be near home, but far enough away that I didn't run into any high school people. And then also Bozeman has really good snowboarding, which I love snowboarding, so that's fine. In undergrad, I was able to do, I did 3 research projects. One of them was my junior year, and it was a class where I had to find a professor and like do a quick research project. So it wasn't anything super extensive. I didn't get published, but it counts because I learned a lot. And then my second one was actually with that same professor, and it was through a program our school had for first generation or minority students. And what happened is it's called the McNair's program. I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but there's also another program across the nation that's super similar, but their focus is just on research, not specifically for first generation or minority students. But I did that program and part of it was to do research and they gave me funding. So that was really cool. And they helped me with my GRE because I went to grad school, so before med school. So I took the GRE. They paid for it and they had speakers. And so for me, I looked at a program at my school and just had that opportunity. If you go to a college, there's probably some program for research. You just got to go find it. So go to your student services building or whatever it's called and like look for it and look for a program that wants you. So I am a first generation going to college, a minority student, like that program was perfect for me. Mm-hmm. You know, I didn't apply to the program where it's a bunch of white males, which that's totally fine if you're a white male. But what I'm saying is I'm not.
Yeah.
So I'm not their ideal candidate. And maybe I could have got in whatever, but I searched for the program that'd be like, yes, we want you. Here's all the resources, blah, blah, blah. So, so I did a program there, or a research there. So that's 2. And then my third one was in grad school. So in grad school, I had to do research. It was part of the program. And I worked in the lab actually with the person who ran the grad program. I was just lucky enough that I talked to her before and I said, hey, are you doing research and whatever? So yeah. But again, my college had so many research opportunities and they like had jobs open. So even though I was going to college, you could be a part-time research assistant. So,
All right.
yeah.
That sounds good. So there's a few more questions of kind of like the MCAT and stuff. So, if you kind of mind like sharing, I guess, your MCAT score or like undergrad GPA, and if you don't feel like it, it's fine. But if there's any tips for the MCAT and what resources you kind of used.
Okay. I'm gonna be honest. I actually don't remember. I know it was like 510-ish. It wasn't super high, but it wasn't super low. The reason I don't remember is because I just took boards, and that's an even bigger test.
Yeah.
And those scores are ones I have like locked in my brain. But yeah, so ideally, again, this has to do with what you want. So when you apply to medical school, you have to think about what kind of school. So yes, you have to take the MCAT and you want to do as well as you can. But like I said, my DO school, maybe they don't take as high, and you like, I got a 510, like that's pretty average. It's nothing special. A 515 or 520 would be high. And I could have still applied, but I didn't want to go to, I didn't want to go to Columbia or an Ivy League or even, Mayo or just any of those. I literally did not care about that. And so I knew right away that I did not need to stress out and get a 520. Right. Also, there are physics on the MCAT was I always hated that. So I knew, I was like, you know what, I'm going to study, but it's going to be, I'm not a big fan of physics. And what's crazy is I use 0 of it. That's truth be told. There's parts on the MCAT you're never going to see again. I don't know why, but I don't remember my undergrad GPA off the top of my head. My grad school GPA was a 3.9. But again, I worked my butt off. I had no social life. It was a year. I just trucked through it. I did really well. But what I can say about undergrad, I don't remember what my final my undergrad GPA, but there was a point in my college career where I did not have the best GPA for med school. I had a decent GPA for whatever. And so because of that, I had to do extra things and whatever to show that increasing trend. I don't know if any of you have heard of that, but what it means is, if you get a C and you have a 3.2 and, you want a 3.6, in order to do that, you have to do really well in the next 2 years. Like you have to show that, yeah, I did pretty bad. I went down, but now I went up as I'm taking harder classes. People look at that, they do. But it has to be pretty significant. So like, if you're in the 2.8, 2.5 range, like you got to get above a 3.2. So you need to show that increasing trend. And the reason for that doesn't have to do with your intelligence by any means. It has to do with the fact that medical school is really hard. It's really rigorous, a lot more rigorous than college. Like you could be an engineering major and be super busy, and med school is still really hard, like harder than that. And it's not the content, it's just the amount of content you have to learn in such a short amount of time that it's very stressful, puts a lot on you. And so what's crappy about these, the MCAT and your GPA is that they do use these to make sure that you can handle it. Because if you can't handle it, at the end of the day in med school, it's on you. There's no extra credit. There's no retaking a test per se. They'll let you remediate at my school 1 or 2 tests in the blocks, but If you don't, you basically just like you're out. So when you get your scores and whatever, you can't think of it as, oh, you're dumb, you can't go to med school. That's not the right way to think about it. Because everyone's smart and everyone's smart in something different, and you just have to understand that these are parameters that admission people have to look at, because they don't know you. They don't know what you're capable of, and so they need something. That's why an increasing trend, they see that and they're like, oh, this person, you know, something happened, but whatever, and let's ask them about it in their interview. So don't be scared of that.
All right. So the next one is kind of more about kind of the military aspect. So can PAs actually serve in the military?
Yes. So the HPSV also has a 2-year program for PAs, because the PA program is about 2.5 years. I don't know how the half year works out in the money wise, but yeah, they can. I had plenty of PAs when I went to training. I met them. Same with nursing. I don't know if nursing is a 2-year scholarship or 3. I can't remember. But yeah, PAs can definitely serve.
All right. And then the next one is, how does active duty look like as a physician? Kind of like a little more, if you could elaborate on it.
Yeah, so right now, when you're a student in med school, active duty isn't truly active duty. You're active duty in their computer system, and when you're active duty, you get paid a little bit more than your stipend because you have active duty pay. It's just part of it. But after school, it really depends on what you do. So prior, I said that you could do a GMO tour and go active duty right away, or you could go to residency first, which you would be paid like a resident. So you're in your residency, whether that's orthopedics or family med or OB-GYN or whatever. Just like civilian residencies, only you are at a naval hospital. That's the difference. You'll probably be wearing scrubs, not uniforms, but you know, there's little things you have to do. That's totally fine. Oh my God, I'm losing my train of thought. Word. Navy. Oh. So a GMO is just like a general doc. You know, you're gonna be active duty. That's your job. You're no longer a medical student. They're gonna give you orders and say, we want you to go on this ship. Remember, I'm in the Navy, we go on ships. Army and Air Force are different. You're gonna go on a ship for 3 years, and you're gonna take care of the troops, right? But what you do have to realize is, even though I'm in the Navy and I'm an officer in the Navy, I'm not like in those wartime movies giving orders and stuff, you know? In the military, there's 2 areas. There's staff corps, which is what I am. It's the dentists, the lawyers, the PAs, the doctors, those people. And then there's the true officers who command the troops, or the sailors, Navy. They're in charge. We technically are in charge. It's not like someone who's enlisted can come and badmouth us and whatever and treat us poorly. But your job is to take care of them, make sure they're healthy. So you just have a different job. You do, you'll probably do PT and work out, but they treat you a little differently because you're a doctor versus someone who's working on the ship per se. They treat you a little better, I'm gonna be honest. So yeah, but I haven't fully done active duty yet, so I can't speak on that for sure. But everywhere I hear is fine. They love their experience, no matter what it is. I have a buddy who's in Japan right now. I also have a girlfriend who's a nurse, and she's in San Diego. So you don't have to be on a ship. It's not like you don't have to be scared that you're going to be sent somewhere crazy. You could be on the East Coast in Portsmouth, Virginia, or you could be in Chicago where they have training. You go where they need you to go.
All right, sounds good. So, one of our few last questions is kind of, how is medical school really like, and what are the challenges you face, kind of?
Medical school is the worst thing and also the best thing. So when I say that, it's hard. It's an emotional roller coaster, and you're gonna get imposter syndrome. You're gonna have days where you just want to cry all day, and then days where you feel on top of the world. It's crazy. The first 2 years are all books, so it's just a lot of stress with tests and all that. And I love it though, because, and I try to explain this to my mom actually. She's like, would you have done anything else? And I'm like, honestly, what I'm doing right now, even though sometimes I'm not, like, I'm stressed out or because of school, or I'm worried about where I'm going next or whatever, I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. Like, I literally couldn't picture myself being an architect or working in a clothing store or doing anything else long term. And I love who I'm around, because I'm around people like me. You know, growing up in high school or even undergrad, like, I had friends, but they were business majors or something else. And they were nice, but they just didn't get like all my nerdiness. um, and so, and I'm a little bit of a jock, like, I like sports and stuff. And so, like, my jock friends who didn't like science, like, they didn't get that part of me. And when you're in med school, you just all understand. Like, you all are so intrigued by the gross pictures that they show, or, you know, the enzymes. And it's a cool environment, and you make really good friends because of it. So, but it's hard.
All right.
So,
So, kind of like the last final question, any final advice you'd kind of give, if anyone wants to pursue the scholarship that you have, or even kind of being an undergrad and trying to apply for med school?
so similar advice for undergrad, like, be involved, be a well-rounded person. You got to get good grades. Doing research never hurts, but having something else to talk about and to put on your resume, like, I had a friend who, he was a non-trad, he took a year off and he went and backpacked Europe, and he put that on his resume, like, that's what I did. And that makes you a human being on your resume. It gives you something to talk about in your personal statement. Like, do not be like the checklist person. Oh, I need this, this, and this. Like, yeah, you need to get a 4-year degree and you got to get good grades. But if you want to go, like, I went to Bozeman, snowy, snowboarding. If you want to go snowboard and be a ski instructor, like, great, put it on your resume, put it on your CV. They love that. You know, if you want to start a nonprofit like you're doing, do it. Getting into medical school, also, you need to be meticulous about your time. You need to know, like, oh, third year, I need to do this. You know, if you want to be a traditional student, you need to know when you need to take your MCAT. How long do you need to study for it? Do you want to buy a Kaplan course? There's lots of options. I think Kaplan's great, by the way. I don't know about Princeton or any of those ones, but I always was a Kaplan person. But yeah, be a well-rounded person, be nice to people, and get good grades. Yeah.
All right. I think we're gonna end it here. Thank you so much for kind of coming on for an hour and just talking to people. I'm sure a lot of people appreciate it as well. So usually what we do is we kind of have you drop your contact info if you would like either your Instagram or email, so people can further reach out. But
where do you want me to do that? In the chat?
yeah. So while you're doing that, I'm just gonna launch this poll that we usually do at the end of every Zoom call, kind of to see how it went and how the smoothness of the call is. So if the participants could please answer that really quick. And for the summaries, someone dropped it in the our Gmail account. So please wait till the end of the week if you're planning on attending any of the other calls. But that's usually that's usually the Gmail that we use. Okay, I'm gonna end it. Yeah, so it went pretty well, the call. So thank you guys for all kind of coming in. And thank you so much again for kind of talking to people about it. And I'm sure they learned a lot actually too with the Navy and stuff. So yeah, you guys are free to go. Thank you guys so much. And we'll see you guys tomorrow for 2 Zoom calls.
All right.
Bye.
Good luck, guys.